Scientists in Oklahoma are one step closer to finding possible evidence of mass graves linked to one of the worst incidents of racial violence in our country's history. Researchers in Tulsa used ground-penetrating radar to survey 3 sites. They found irregularities at 2 of those sites that could be consistent with large-scale burials.
To jail. A mob gathers of white.
Rabble Rabble show, I got chat to them, I made them chat for it. Rabble Rabble, you don't know say the one and only National Rabble Danger, and on this platform we do things different. Rabblings, a lot of people have never thought or tried to learn about their history. They just live in the present, agree or disagree, make me know. Now I have a question. How hard do you think it is for a black person to make it in America? Now, would you believe me if I tell you that black people had their own black street in the late 18th century, where you find banks, supermarket, theaters, and all you can think of, all owned by black people. But unfortunately, in 1921, all hell broke loose. Rabble Rabble, straight rabbling, spree this.
Between the 1870s and the beginning of World War I, black pioneers settled more than 100 all-black towns in the West, each with the goal of economic independence. Among the most well-known was a black district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known by its residents as Greenwood.
If we were to go back in time to 1920 and walk up and down Greenwood Avenue, one thing that would probably strike us is the absolute variety of businesses. The numbers are astonishing. 30 restaurants, 45 groceries and meat markets. There were dry goods stores, milliners, photography studio, dental offices. Greenwood is no longer called Greenwood. It's now known as Black Wall Street.
This whole idea of self-containment really existed there. The dollar would stay in that community sometimes over 3-5 years before it ever went outside of the community.
In 1919, black soldiers returned from World War I with high expectations for racial progress at home. But in one city after another, white mobs erupted in violence, targeting black veterans, citizens, and businesses. Hundreds died. On Tulsa's Black Wall Street, African Americans, including armed veterans, watched nervously and prepared for what might come.
Countering this white militancy is very much an African American spirit of we're going to defend ourselves. If the mob comes, we're not going to run, we've got our guns, and we're going to protect ourselves. And that was especially important and valuable and potent in Greenwood.
On May 30th, 1921, the mob came to Greenwood.
This white woman is in an elevator, and this black teenager allegedly whistles at her or talks to her. He is taken to jail. A mob gathers of whites and blacks, and blacks in Tulsa are armed. They take their Second Amendment rights seriously, and they come with guns. And this is a threat. Someone fires into the crowd, and the riot is born. This was not about the whistling boy in the elevator. This was about blacks becoming too economically powerful and showing that wealth in a way that anyone would by creating buildings and constructing churches and having property.
There was a whistle that blew, and then the mass invasion and the destruction of Greenwood began.
When the smoke cleared in the early morning of June 1st, 1921, Black Wall Street lay in ruins.
This is by far the largest single incident of racial violence in all of American history.
He's grateful that a tragic, little-known part of Tulsa history is now coming to light.
For decades, it was hush-hush. Even some of the survivors that I interviewed, they were quiet and telling, oh, and the white people, this. They whisper in their own homes because they were brought up not talking about what happened.
It happened on these streets in 1921. Much of the Tulsa neighborhood of Greenwood was burned to the ground by a white mob. The group clashed with several armed black men who had gathered to protect a black shoeshiner who was unjustly accused of assaulting a white woman. After a shot was fired, violence broke out and hundreds of black people were massacred. Ross's great-grandfather was forced to flee the city after his business was destroyed.
You had explosions, you had people running for their lives. It was just hell on earth.
The horror was brought to life in the premiere episode of HBO's new series, Watchmen. Witnesses reported seeing bodies put in mass graves, but local officials hid evidence of any crimes.
Along the fence line.
At a public forum Monday, scientists confirmed they discovered what appears to be an underground pit, roughly 30 by 25 feet, which they say is large enough to bury up to 100 bodies.
But I'm as confident as I can be in the results that this is a very good candidate for something associated with the massacre.
G.T. Bynum is Tulsa's mayor.
It's very powerful. It's the first time that we've had anyone say that from a technical standpoint in an open forum in a meeting like this, or to us.
Scientists are now planning to do additional surveys that could lead to excavations.
We don't know what the preservation will be like, and even if the preservation is truly excellent, we don't know who we'll find in there.
How soon would you like to see excavation?
I would like to see excavation by the spring. You know, we waited this long. We know where they are. Let's go get them.
The city wants to continue scanning early next year. Now, to give you a little bit more perspective, 35 blocks were burned to the ground. One of the few things that survived that massacre was the basement of this church here. Everything you see above ground was built afterwards. And church leaders in this community say if remains are found, they want them relocated here to the Black Wall Street area.
Rabble Rabble, no fear for tell them say you hear it, so remember for like, share and subscribe. Straight Rabblings.